We're back in the studio talking about minerals. Take it away.
Well, minerals on one aspect, but really animal nutrition and filling in the gaps when we haven't got the soil fully sorted out yet, and going into calving, young stock, they all need minerals, and they need them for a specific reason and the stress that gets put on them and to alleviate those problems. So, this here actually originated from Jerry Brunetti in the United States. I got to be a good friend of Jerry, met him many times at many conferences, and he was a very, very good animal nutritionist. And at the time I thought, Jesus, if we could ever get the minerals in the plants as to what he was saying, we'd be doing damn well. And over time...
And you mean like that ideal set there that we see on the screen, if we could be that within that range?
Absolutely. If you could get to that point, we would have big growing animals and they'd be so super healthy and processes and that. And so it was a real eye-opener that someone was going, to me, it was like he was way over to the left of what we look at as the centre part in New Zealand grass-fed agriculture at the moment. And it was a real eye-opener. And as I went through the process more and more with him, I learnt a lot more and challenged a lot of things that he was saying. And it just depended on, their climate, feeding stock inside, and we were out on the grass, and we were trying to get the best out of the both worlds. So in this regard, when I look at this mineral makeup, I'm going, well, okay, this is our gold standard where we want to go to. And basically where we're running at the moment in pasture agriculture is nowhere near it.
Wow.
And there's some seriously dangerous things going on, and how we get fooled into or convinced that things are normal when they are not.
Are farmers aware that they're nowhere near it?
Generally, no. And you'll see, like if we go to the next slide and we look at this process here, I mean, this is a reputable laboratory. They do a great job. We use these guys all the time. But, like in regards to that, if we just go into edit mode there, and I'll just point some things out here. It's like when the first thing that starts off here, and we look at the nitrogen. So they're saying the desired
4.5 to 5.5.
Right? And this is dangerous, okay, because it's got a lot of excess nitrogen. Now, the reason that this is showing up is that this is the average of the tests that come into the laboratory, and this is what people expect to see because this is just the average. Now, in this test here, it was done in the spring, and at 3.41, it's right at the higher end of where I'd like it to be, but it's okay. And so what it's doing is it's not putting any stress on the animal as far as excess nitrates. And we'll go through that equation as we go further forward. But, as we go down this process, like saying 0.33 of phosphorus, we're going, it's not in the good range, but, 0.25 is fine. But these two figures.
Well, I mean, it's almost in the good range.
Yeah, but it's fine. It's actually great. But what it is that these averages are based on the way we fertilize our soils.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of soluble phosphate and lots of soluble nitrogen. And so the pasture test says, well, this is the average. And I'm going, but the average is not good. This is dangerous.
Okay, so, because I was talking to you about this earlier, when we're looking at the dots in the plant nutrition desired range, what you expressed to me was that's not necessary. Well, like who is the authority on making this up, right? That's the question. Who says that this is what's perfect?
Well, the average of what everybody sees. And so let's be average. And it's not right because the animal's nutrition does not feed just the average process of what farmers send a herbage sample in. It's bonkers.
In other words, if you've had years and years and years as a country with averages that represent bad nutrition, then using the average as a range to be idealistic is totally off.
Totally
right.
off.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really totally off. And so, as we go down this ratio, one of the things that I learnt with Brookside's, potassium should be 3:1 to calcium, 3 parts potassium to 1 part calcium. Okay. And when I look at this ratio, I'm going, potassium's at 2.68, that's okay. And the ratio, the calcium's at 0.94. So we're damn bang on my target, 3:1, 3 parts. Now, but looking over here, they're going, you've got too much.
Yeah.
And I'm going, but I've actually got that right. And so I've got the nitrogen right and I've got the calcium right.
Yeah.
But they're both at extremes on the average of what we're seeing. And
Wow.
this is just how it's been played out. And so as we go down through this process and see, like when I get down here, we go down into these trace elements here.
Okay.
And we look at copper, 67. We want 10 parts per million of copper. Come on. It's that. And so at 9, we're nearly there. Okay.
And they think, well, the Herbage Test thinks you've got it too much.
Yeah. And at 6 to 7, I know that we're going to cause ourselves some problems with animal nutrition. So then we got boron at 17. Now this is starting to get into the place where we want to be. I'd like to see it at 20 parts per million.
Hang on. Can we just go back to the 6 to 7 bit causing problems with the nutrition? Just look at that, right? So 6 to 7 is the range that it should be within, but you think that 6 to 7 is off. What would happen? What's an example of something where copper within 6 to 7 causes a problem?
Well, it has a relationship with selenium. And if they do not have enough selenium and copper to uptake it, what the animal does, it goes through a process where it cannot absorb iron. They start getting nitrate poisoning, and they go through a whole process where they start get worm burdens, and there's a massive thing going on about drench resistance and all these other bits and pieces. And really, it's not drench resistance; it's animal nutrition that's gone wrong because we've set our standards way too low.
Well, what I'm getting at is, maybe it's my conspiracy mind, but if you were to believe this, then you're going to, and you get it perfect for this, you're going to have a lifetime of those problems. Because if you keep it within that range, you've actually kept it within an unhealthy range.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
But and I don't know if, I know, like I've got my ideas about a lot of things, but, I don't even know if this was being conspired or it's just by how they do it. They do an average. The computer works it out and says, this is the average of all the tests that we see. And I say the average sucks. This is no good. And we have huge amounts of material in the farming magazines at the moment saying, oh, well, you've got to get your drench resistance and you've got to know what types of drench to use and all these. And I'm going, your animals are actually got malnutrition, not drench resistance.
Yeah.
And so at this level, if you have copper at 6 parts per million, the animal is malnourished. There's not enough copper there to nourish the process.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's not enough selenium to go with it, then we've got an even bigger problem.
Mm.
So, and then it goes on. It just capitulates. And so, we get to the boron, for instance. This is good. It's 17. We're getting close to what we want to be. We've got our calcium up. Now, this is what I'm trying to point out to people, how there's things that we do on a daily basis in farming, but we don't actually acknowledge what we do. So when you get a cow down with milk fever in the spring, it's a calcium deficiency. If you go and look at the bottle of material that you get from the vets or farm source or whatever, you'll see it's called calcium boroglutamate.
Boron.
It's got boron in it.
Yeah.
And the boron is essential for the calcium uptake for the animal to jump back up and be healthy. So why would not be really important to have the boron in the pasture and the calcium up so that the animal could uptake the calcium in the feed? Because we get told you can't feed calcium to animals. It'll give them milk fever, and going, oh, God, this old one. If they have a good, adequate boron, it's essential that we go through the cycle of those animals putting calcium, laying calcium down. There does need to be magnesium, the phosphorus needs to be in order, but all of these things need to be in order. And we are not looking at those enough. And so as we go down through these ratios, like the selenium, we like to see 0.2 of a part per million. Right, so we're not quite there yet. So we need to double that.
So what's happening there on screen when over in the ideal range I saw to the right there, that it's just nothing?
There's that's just because they haven't got enough data, or they don't want to actually make a claim against these absolute miners. So you'll see right down at the bottom here.
Sure.
And you see nickel, and you see it's under a heavy metal.
Yes.
And I go, oh yeah, well that heavy metal is an essential enzyme called urease. And urease converts nitrate to ammonia. Yeah. And so if it does that in the soil, well then you've already got, in cool weather climates, you've already got the precursor to proteins. Ammonia, amines, amino acids. Bang, bang, bang. So you can actually grow grass in cooler temperatures without nitrates if you have the right biology in the soil. And we see this in the Herbage Test. So we get, and the cross-referencing with the soil test, if you get ammonia starting to come up over the winter, it's perfect because it's going to grow grass in the winter period and it's going to grow it healthier without the nitrate stress. And so there's all these things that we need to know. And so like here we've got 0.2 of iodine. That's cool. So the ideal is 0.25. So we're right on the mark, pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know in the soil that it is absolutely essential for cyanobacteria production, but also for in the animal, it's in the thyroid, it's in thyroxine, it's a temperature control. In the animal.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we've got, we haven't got too much nitrates in our feed. The animal's under temperature control. She doesn't care that it's -5 degrees because she can handle it.
Nice.
So these are the things that we have not looked at enough. And certainly as we go forward, we'll look at this process up here, like total recoverable silicate. People are going, well, no one's ever done anything like that before. Only 15 years ago, they go, well, we think it's an essential element now. And going, well, it's been essential all along. Just because somebody thought it was didn't make it that it all of a sudden it had to be.
Yeah.
But with these numbers, what we're actually seeing now is that we can actually get up to 150 parts per million of silicon.
No kidding.
Yeah. And
Wow.
then, and what we see then, when that goes up, this aluminium guy, we can get that right down to 25 parts per million.
Yeah. And if I've learnt anything, getting the aluminium down seems to be pretty essential.
Totally. So what we've seen is silica brings structure, brings health. And so when we start to get all these numbers to drop into the right place, it's brilliant. Oh, God, it's awesome. The animals just thrive.
Yeah. Do you ever have a situation where having aluminium at 0 is ideal, or should there ever be a little bit of aluminium?
There's a place on the genetic sequence for aluminium, but everything's in order. Like everything has to be in order. If you don't have any boron, because they're both +3 elements, it's more likely you'll have more aluminium. If you don't have any silicon and you don't have any boron, you will have a lot of aluminium. We see it up to 200 parts per million.
Yeah.
And it's just too much. These are the sorts of things that we notice as we go through time, as we sort the soils out, bring the nutrition in with the response in the animal health, going, yep, these guys over time, the scientists, the people that did all the research on this, were on target. And what we're seeing is that we can actually do that in the soil and bring it through. But right at the start, you can't. And the animal needs to actually self-medicate herself, or you need to supplement to actually solve these issues in the meantime. So what we'll do is we'll go to the next issue,
sure,
which is just really the biggest issue of all, especially in the dairy farming. And most people don't understand. This is one of the things I learned with Brookside pretty early on, is that ideal pasture, 3% N times 6.25. So what we have to see is that if you're actually looking to work out how much protein you've got in the soil, you take the nitrogen content, you times it by 6.25, you end up with the amount of protein. You can go and do amino acid tests, but you need lots of money. I mean, lots of money. So what we have to do is look at the nitrogen percentage and go, okay, what's going on? Now, we also know that other than likes of lucerne, herbage plants, pasture plants can't really grow more than 18 to 21, 22% protein. They just can't. They can't assimilate enough nitrogen to grow X amount of protein. So what happens when we look back at those herbage tests and we add 4.5 to 5.5% nitrogen? We're going, well, it certainly isn't going to be a protein. So we look at this calculation here now. We're in trouble here. We now got massive amounts supposedly of protein, and it's not. So the reality is it's non-protein nitrogen, and it gets into the rumen, and then it causes all sorts of problems. So we'll go to the next slide, and I'll go through all of these things one at a time just to get this absolutely clear. When you get a herbage test, take that N percentage, times it by 6.25. It'll show you what your supposed protein is. You can only get 18 to 21% max. Anything above that 21%, it's going to be non-protein nitrogen. So we roll over to the next part. A standard herbage test in New Zealand dairy at the moment is 4.5 to 5%. So they're coming up as, it's got 34% protein. Woohoo! And going, no, it hasn't. It's more likely to have about 15% protein, and the rest is non-protein nitrogen because it's that far out of balance.
Wow.
So now we're talking.
That's misleading.
Well, it's not been told. It's just one of these things that hasn't been expressed enough. Like, now you're actually drinking firewater. Well, it is. It's because as soon as you go to nitrates, it's an acid.
Yeah.
And it just starts burning the gut, and you can see the animals suffering from it.
Yeah.
So what's wrong, or what's been wrong with the situation, is that the soil guys and the animal nutritionists and the environmentalists haven't actually sat around the table and thought about this very much, or talked about the issues and how one impacts on the others.
Okay.
And there's no course at university that does soil nutrition, animal nutrition, and environmental science all in one go.
Ah, right.
It just doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's where specialization goes too far. It needs to be a bit more covered off, doesn't it?
Totally. And if you're going for funding, we're going to try and stop the nitrates in the water. Going, well, okay, we're going to go and do soil science. Oh, that's got nothing to do with it. And going, oh, my God.
Oh, no.
So let's roll on to the next one here. So you have 2.5% N as non-protein nitrogen as nitrates in the feed. So immediately when it gets into the rumen, it starts to deoxygenate. When it starts to deoxygenate, you get anaerobic digestion. Methane comes from anaerobic digestion. So when they're talking about farting cows, what you're saying, it's caused by your own hand, because your excess nitrogen in the feed is now caused the low pH, the oxygen to disappear, and your cows now have nitrate poisoning. Well, they're at a sort of low-level nitrate poisoning. So we have these major issues happening all the time. And so this leads on to metabolic problems too. So we've got excess nitrogen, and if your potassium's out of bed too with it, then you've got potassium nitrates, and you've got cows that are just falling over left, right and centre. And you're running around in little circles trying to solve the issue where it should have been solved in the soil to start with. But in the meantime, we've got to learn how to actually get us from one place to another without spending too much time, money, and pulling our hair out.
Yeah, true.
So we'll go to the next one. So, warning. Now, this is where people don't even realise. Excess nitrogen causes anaerobic digestion, oxygen deprivation for ruminants, and in critical cases, nitrate poisoning. Now, what people don't realise is nitrate poisoning is asphyxia. The animal dies of oxygen starvation.
That's rough.
And so these are the things that go, I didn't know that. The antidote for nitrate poisoning is actually iodine.
Is it?
Yeah. And so there's all these catalysts and these processes that go on, or should go on, in a natural form. And this is why I'm being really hot on, things like nickel. Sure, we don't need bugger all. We just need to get enough up so that the urease can work. So immediately, if there is an excess of nitrate, it goes to work to convert it to ammonia. It brings the pH up in the rumen. It oxygenates the rumen, so you get aerobic digestion. You don't get this problem of bloody methane coming off. And so they want to make a genetic modification for something that's wrong in the soil. So like everyone's trying to get their fingers in the pie instead of solving the problem. And it's just one of those things that just follow on. It's the agricultural, or the people feeding into agriculture looking, how can I make some money out of this? How can I make some money out of this? What do we got to, can we have a product to sell this process? And we're racing to the bottom instead of racing to the top. And when you get this right, the feed quality for the animals, their digestion, their whole reproductive, their production, everything just goes dunk, 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 dunk. And they live for a lot longer and they have greater things. So then we get to this product that we developed for Vitus, and it's a really interesting process. Like I playing around with the silica, we got hold of some diatomaceous earth, and I started mucking around, knowing all those mineral ratios and trying to get the biological effect go back in the rumen to start to be able to digest the feed better. Because when we look at it, when you look at the ocean has the same chemical composition as our blood. And then we have to look at the minerals that are not in sufficient quantity, like silicon. When we make a mineral lookup, there's not enough sufficient silicon in there as there is soluble in the ocean. So, and there's not iodine, so we bring in kelp meal, which is high in natural iodine. So what we're trying to do with this product is actually bring about free choice supplement for the animals to actually start to let their rumen to develop before calving.
Right.
And so that these animals are not under such stress. And they all actually, like you see it, you go onto farms that the soil's really out of order, they just mow this stuff down for a week or two until they get themselves more in a balance. And where we're in a place there, we'll put a drum out now and, 2 days, 3 days, oh, it's still there. Oh, yeah, one day it's gone on a cold, wet day, they'll clean it up. So they balance themselves.
Paula wanted me to highlight the fact that the little hole there that you see on the bag, that's intentional.
Yeah.
That's there on purpose, and if you get some, not to freak out about it that it's a damaged bag, it's there to allow a little bit of air out.
That's right. We can't stack them we haven't got the flashest vacuum backing stacking thing machine yet.
Right, sure.
And so without putting that little hole in it, you can't actually compress it down. Otherwise you end up with all these bags bouncing across the pallet and they all fall off.
Yeah, right. So just don't be concerned if you get a bag.
There's a little hole in. Yeah,
it's on purpose. Okay, let's look at this one.
So this is late in the afternoon at home. The cows early May.
Right.
Weaned the calves a while ago, and they're just having a play. Like you can watch on, these guys just having a bit of a nibble and a munch.
Yeah, so it's obviously something that they're attracted to because they just get right into it with no concern about it. Must taste pretty good.
Well, it's quite funny watching them, and their tongue movements and then hitting their heads in there and just having a bit of a lick. And all of a sudden they want it, and next thing, where'd they go? They're off. They've done for the day. And what it is that the ability to bring it into their rumen is part of that digestion, because that's really what you need to do is digest the feed. What we've got past is that we seem to think we can turn grass straight into something in the rumen.
Right.
But the rumen's full of biology, absolutely stacked with it. Unless you feed those biology to actually break down the feed and release the nutrient for the animal, you don't get anything.
Also, you were saying because they have some and then take off, they're obviously good at self-regulating what's enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
animals are, and they'll tell you a story. I mean, we've had a few incidences in the last 12 months where we're going, what's going on here? And we've gone back and done herbage tests and soil tests and going, oh, cows knew before we did. There was a little issue we had coming up and going, oh, okay, we've sorted that problem out now.
Yeah. Cool. So they're really comfortable with it being put out, and there's one on the right, guilty as charged.
Yeah.
All right, so that takes us to the mineral wheel.
Yeah, and this is just a real example. This is done by a chap called Mr. Mulder, and this is one of the more complex ones. So if we go into edit mode, and I'll just have a look. See this one up here, like nickel.
Yeah.
There's nothing that affects it.
Really?
But it's a starter, so it kicks into the zinc, and then look where the zinc goes. It goes everywhere.
Yeah, I see that. Zinc's got a lot of connections to it.
That's right. And so what are these, and you go up to something like calcium at the top and look at the requirements, how many catalytic reactions take place. I mean, just come over to selenium, the same thing. And so you've got certain elements that, have a massive response in effect to all these other things. Now, we can't possibly work out every little enzyme and process that goes on in the rumen, but they know it. To look at the situation, what you're seeing is that these are the interaction between all these minerals.
Yeah.
And they are biological reactions as well. Like the biology in the rumen cannot function when something stops. Like, so when we talked before, there's not enough copper. Okay. And look at this, selenium down to copper.
Yeah.
A direct relationship. And it goes both ways.
Got to have a heck of a lot going to back and from copper.
Right. And so what happens is that we know, and we didn't have Mulder's charts back when I was on the peat farm as a young fella, but we knew straight away as soon as we put some selenium in the water with the copper, we get a hell of a good result.
Yeah, right.
And then it wasn't long after that they started using selenium pearls on the soil. So these are the sort of interactions that we sort of, as farmers and have been neglecting and going, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. So what's happened is that when we make this Vitus product up, we're getting products out of the ocean, like from a Grasmere saltworks, which comes in, which is like a concentrated blood product. And when we blend it with the Dolomite and the Diatomaceous and the Kelp meal, we're trying to make up a product sort of like powdered blood in a way, and that they can actually eat it and regenerate themselves. But we'd be better if we could get it through the plants. But in the meantime, let's try and fix the problem, because we know damn well that if you feed this before calving as free choice for dairy cows, man, does that solve a huge amount of metabolic problems.
Right.
So, one of Paula's favourite cows. Well, she's been around forever. I think, well, at an estimate, she's 15, maybe 16 years old.
Mm.
And she just looks after herself, has a calf every year, really good. And, she just rocks up, has a bit of a lick and wanders off again. She's always there when you pull the fence down. She's always the first to get through. But, she's a real example of when things are going okay, how they can look after themselves. And, I remember years ago, I bought some 7-year cows, which they were deemed they were getting old, from down in Gisborne.
Right.
And I kept them until they were about 14. So I actually got twice the use out of them.
Yeah.
And they had some hellish good calves. So what we've done is the cost of rearing a calf and getting it up to getting it into production, and then we're going, oh, she's too old, we get rid of her. And going, hold on here, you've still got another 6 or 7 years of good production out of this animal.
Yeah.
And where you don't have to reintroduce younger livestock, which usually brings a little bit more issues about calving and bits and pieces. So, there's a perfect example. She just come along. She's the boss. Nobody else has come along to give her a hard time. You leave me alone. Yeah.
And that's our cow that was caught red-handed earlier.
Yeah, it's a heifer from the other mob. Yeah. So, it's pretty simple. You put it out there, they look after themselves. There's no dusting. You don't have to go flying around the paddock with little spreaders to spread magnesium oxide everywhere. It's far more efficient. The cows will actually regulate themselves instead of actually having to eat the magnesium oxide. And this is one of the things that, like I keep telling people, that we're not educated enough about what's going on. You're giving the cows magnesium oxide for a calcium deficiency.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so how does that work? And the first thing I do is ask for them, okay, well, you've got magnesium oxide, you give it to the cows. Oh, yes, to stop the milk fever. I said, milk fever is a calcium deficiency, isn't it? And go, yeah. How does that work? And I know how it works. It's just that if you go back to Lewis Crew-Vaughan's work about biological transmutation, they will actually fuse the magnesium and the oxygen to make calcium.
Okay.
If the rumen's not working properly, they can't do it.
I see. Okay.
So we've got a whole lot of issues that come about from that process. So if you've got acid guts, you've got inadequate other nutrition, they cannot actually do that anyway.
Right.
And so some people go, oh, it didn't work this year, and go, well, there's something else going on as well. But you really should understand what's going on in your farm. People don't actually understand what's going on in their farm. And, I was talking to a client the other day, and I was just going through these issues about what he was facing. Oh, no, I don't know any of this stuff. And I'm going, fair enough, but you should. It's actually, you should know this stuff. And hence.
It's tough, though, isn't it? It's a lot when you've got a lot of things in the farm that are going on, and this has not been the way people have been trained either.
No.
Taught or handed down from generation to generation.
Absolutely. And what's happening now is that as our clients get more time, and they get more and more interested, they become more and more educated about what's going on the farm, and it becomes a lot nicer place to be.
Well, the clue there is more time. So what's giving them more time?
Well, they haven't got the problems with down cows. They don't have to run out and spray nitrogen on the paddock. They don't have to do all these things. And this is where, there's a lot of talk about, time-saving devices and all these other issues. Oh, I've got all this extra time. It still costs a lot of money to buy time if your farm's not working properly.
Yeah.
If the farm's working properly, and I put this into context with, you make a profit on kilograms per hectare, on profit per hectare. So, we've got organic clients that are doing 800 kilograms a hectare. Their cost per will be about $3, $3.50. So it's $9 a kilo. Spare $8 to $9, and if they've done 800, that's quite a lot of money per hectare. And I challenge any of the conventional high input guys to get it even close. Now, it's a very relaxed way of farming. It's been very profitable, and it's ongoing that they've been getting these, higher prices, or can't higher prices for product that haven't got toxins in them. So,
yeah.
So if you're looking at that, on the same profitability on a standard operation, you'll need to do 1,000 kilograms of milk solids a hectare with low inputs. Now, that was the norm when I grew up in Elstow. That if you got to 1,000 kilograms or 600 kilograms of fat with virtually no input, you just made some silage and some hay, you were doing really well. Those people.
What's the norm now?
There is no norm. They have these system 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 farms, which is 5 means you're just about buying everything in to feed the cows, to make milk, to send it out. Doesn't work. Profit doesn't work. So I was talking to one of his clients the other day, spending $1,000 a cow on inbound feed.
God, $1,000 a cow.
Yeah. And it doesn't work. The equation doesn't work. Now, so I'm just going, and they've been looking around what we're doing going, we need to go here. We've got to get out of these high cost processes.
Yeah.
But, the whole issue is that we've been put on a treadmill that, you need to buy this and you need to buy that. Okay, no, you need to get your soil fixed. It will grow you the grass, the animal health that will come with it. And these are some of the tools that we've got to get through those points to get you out the other side. And that means you don't have to drench. You don't have to do all these things. Some of our clients now, year 3, they don't know what milk fever is anymore, which is they've got bags of stuff that they bought the first year and they're sitting in the cow shed going, it's out of date, but I'll probably never have to use it again anyway. So it's not really an issue. But these are things that people just like, what? Yeah, milk fever is a nutritional problem that's caused by doing all these dopey things that cost us too much money. And then we go and buy things like halter and these other animal behavioural processes because you haven't got any time, because you've got to go and put the nitrogen on and then you've got to go and do this and then you've got to feed them at shed and there's no margin. And going, hold on here, you've completely missed what's wrong. And it was the soil. And then if you don't have the soil right, well, then you're not going to grow decent pasture and then you're going to have to renew the pasture and so on and on it goes. And so these things are what you would call a really bad business model. We solve people's problems. And the thing is that those clients don't spend near as much in year 2 and 3, specifically year 3, as their farms really crank up.
Yeah.
But what happens is people looking over the fence going, well, we want some of that now. So we're busier than ever. And we're just merely pointing out that farming can be a lot of fun. And where a lot of the stuff came from when I was doing our own beef and marketing it through the shop and the top restaurants and that was like full nutrition on the farm meant absolute health and the products that came out were extraordinary and they were easy to sell and you got better money for it. Now, is that not what we want to do as farmers?
Plain and simple.
Plain and simple. And I've said before, we are the health gatekeepers of the country.
Yeah.
And people do not, well, what do you want about? Going, well, if you've got healthy animals and a really healthy farm, what comes off your place is then fit for human consumption. You will have a lot more healthy people in that community if they're eating that food than if we go to the supermarket every day and eat denatured product that hasn't got the mineral content. And we see that with these livestock, especially with sheep at the moment with these problems that they've got with this drench resistance. And it's just nutritional.
Yeah. That's pretty straightforward. So if people want to get hold of this, I've noticed that the next slide is a forklift with what must be about a ton there.
Yep. That's how we send it out.
Okay. And I'll show you what the process is for getting hold of it. So here on the website is where you'll find it at efa.nz. So your starting point when you go to efa.nz is then go into products, scroll down from products, and you should find Vitus there on the left. Click onto that. It's the 1 ton bulk orders, and you can see it's there up on screen. You can look through some of the pictures and check out more information on it. There's some of the photos we've used in today's presentation, but also there's a little bit more about the product as well below it. So if you've got interests on ingredients, directions, its organic certification, all that stuff is there. So that's pretty helpful. And
so if you just go back down a little bit further there, this is out the back of Kurau, and what they do here is like it's not bad ground actually, but it's pretty open and raw, and they're calving 600-700 cows every year, and it's a very easy care operation.
Right.
And one of the critical things for Slim is that he just goes out there and puts the minerals out there, and he gets them up in these blocks, and so that they don't have any problems with calving and they don't have any metabolics, and so it's a very easy care operation. So and that's his calving beat, is go around, make sure all the minerals up to scratch, and they self-regulate. And yeah, when you look at his livestock and what comes out the other end, it's a seriously good way of dealing with this.
Yeah, that sounds like a really great way of dealing with it. Well, that's cool, Ewan. Is there anything else you want to say before we finish this podcast today?
Look, farming needs to be fun, okay? And you need to sort the issues that make it fun. And there are transitional processes that can help you get to those things. And that's what the Vitus is about today. But, let's get educated, have some fun while we're getting educated, and enjoy being a farmer again.
Nice one.